What's up, everybody? Eric here with another EWE Reviews. Today we're going to talk about Mandalorian Season 3, Episode 8, the season finale episode for Season 3. Before we get into that, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, let me know what you thought down in the comments down below. Alright guys, let's get started with some information. The title of this episode is The Return. It was released on April 19, 2023. The cast includes Pedro Pascal, Katie Sackhoff, Emily Swallow, Carl Weathers, Giancarlo Esposito, and it has a runtime of 39 minutes. The basic plot of this episode is, if you watch the last one, we're going now into... how would I say this? We're going to basically the final battle against Moff Gideon for the season. That's as basic as I can go with this one without going into... as usual, it's going to be the spoiler section. I'll do spoilers later. Spoiler-free section right now, spoilers later. It's just simple battle, like, oh, they need to win this battle. That's about it. So let's move on to my spoiler-free thoughts, because there's really not much to this episode in terms of, like, it's pretty straightforward. So first off, it has great action. I was very impressed with this episode with the action. Whew, but if I'm not lying, this season, that's not one of their biggest problems. They've had pretty good action all season. They've been pretty consistent with that, so I really like that. Another aspect that I really like is that the season's very open-ended. As in, if they wanted to make another season, they can. If they kind of wanted to just end it here, they kind of could too. It felt, the ending to me was like, maybe we're gonna get more, maybe we're not. We're not sure. Maybe one of the characters is gonna get their own spin-off, and maybe some of the characters move over to that show. I'm not necessarily sure. So it kind of felt like if it's coming back, it could be like a reboot thing. I'm not necessarily sure, but it felt like they kind of ended it. But I'm not sure. Like I said, it could be, it's open-ended. I'm not sure what they're gonna do there. I was surprised overall that the final battle is just 2 episodes. By that I mean, in episode 7, we kind of know, like, oh, Moff Gideon is on Mandalore, he has a base there, and in this episode we get a conclusion to it. It's not like this is dragging on to season 4. So I was just like, I was very confused, because then it makes me wonder, well then why don't we just set up Moff Gideon earlier in the season? I know this is something that's going to be in the season review that I do, but I was very confused about that, of like, you could have saved this for, like, you could have had this whole thing setting up for this final battle instead of, you just had the battle. You could have had little things here and there throughout the season. And I don't know, it just felt wasted to me, if I'm being perfectly honest. But it is what it is. Alright. But another thing that this episode did really well, though, is they used the big 3 great here. So for most of the season, I felt like Grogu was kind of sidelined. Even Din Djarin had moments where he was sidelined and Bo-Katan was like the main star. And this one, it actually felt like, oh no, they're using all 3 in a good way. They're very good at complementing each other. It was good, like, synergy between all of them. And you felt like they were a team. So that's a big plus for me. I really enjoyed seeing something like that. And I thought this was the right finale. Though I don't like, if you guys saw my first review, I even talked about, I don't know what direction for the season was going. And I felt like they didn't even know either. But if I go back to seasons 1 and 2, I feel like it's probably something similar with all of them. It's like, we get there in the end, but the way we did it's like, you could have done this more efficiently, something where it's like less filler, because that was probably my biggest problem with the season, was the filler. But yeah, I think this was the right finale for this season. I thought it ended pretty on a good term for me. Like I said, they could make more seasons. They could stop if they wanted. I'm not really sure. When you see it, the ending, it's like, okay. Let's see. Negatives. I don't really have that much negatives. I felt like this was basically just a final battle. It wasn't really, oh, we're setting up too much. Like, this was what everything was setting up to. Even though I think they rushed setting things up, I still thought this was a great episode. I thought they did everything that it needed to do, and it got done. So I was really happy. I enjoyed it. Let's move on to my score now, guys. I'm gonna give this an 8 out of 10. I'm gonna say it's great. I know I've seen a lot of outlets giving it like 9s, and I'm just like, it wasn't a 9 to me. Just because you did what was already expected, you did the action. And I'm like, part of me was like, but you rushed into it too fast for my taste. For 2 episodes, I'm like, this could have been extended to 4 episodes or something like that. So that's where my tick goes with it, because I'm like, this could have been way better if they did everything else better from the start. I would definitely recommend you go watch this episode. I think you should watch the season as well. So yeah, guys, that's my spoiler-free thoughts. I definitely recommend you go watch it. And yeah, all right. So For those of you that aren't going to go into the spoiler section, thank you for watching. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, let me know what you thought in the comments down below. But for those of you that are staying with me, let's do a countdown, and then we'll go into the spoiler section. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Alright guys, welcome into the spoiler section of the video. I'm going to go through the plot of this episode and tell you my thoughts on each individual piece as I saw fit. So, we start off the episode and we see Bo and her, the people that went with her, the other Mandalorians that went in her to, I guess, find Great Forge. They all end up having to escape. She's with that group. They're talking to the guy that's going up that he escaped in the last episode. Telling him that, like, hey, you need to make sure that use the main ship as a decoy. So that's the first thing they end up doing. Alright, then we see that Din Djarin's being taken away. He's being dragged by these 2 clone troopers. And then he tries to escape, and he starts beating the crap out of them. And it looks like he's about to, but then they end up getting the drop on him. But then who comes in to save the day? Little Grogu, and he ends up saving Din Djarin. So that was awesome. But then we start seeing what Moff Gideon is planning. He's starting his attack. He's sending ships out to the big cruiser, trying to attack them. He's putting all his ships in. But luckily, Din Djarin, he doesn't know this base at all. He gets R5 to come in and gives them a schematic of the map of the base. So they end up getting into like the little pad, and they're in the scene where they need to go. All right. And then we see a bunch of the Mandalorians now. They're on the ship, and they end up leaving the main cruiser into their little battle cruisers. It's really cool because you see them landing on those like drop ships while it's still in midair. I thought that was really cool. That was a cool scene. And then we see that the cruisers use a decoy for the TIE fighters to go attack TIE interceptors. They're going to attack it. And then we see a badass fight with Din Djarin. So, if you remember in episode... probably was the last episode. Episode 7, where we saw like that force field of like troopers in between each force field. We see that, and Din Djarin and Grogu need to get past there. So what Din Djarin ends up doing is he tells R5, hey, turn off each one by one, and he ends up fighting with each enemy one by like a 2-on-2s, 2-on-1 fights the entire way. Oh my god, it was really cool. It reminded me a lot about that Deadpool fight back in the old Netflix show. It kind of had me thinking about that. Even though it wasn't one shot, the idea of what they're doing, I thought it was very similar to that. Alright, so going on from there, Din ends up winning that fight, but then afterwards, Din Djarin ends up seeing the clones of Moff Gideon. We end up finding a little later what those clones were for, but before that, Din Djarin actually destroys all the clones. He's like, no, we're not giving this to Moff Gideon. Alright, so then we see... Din Djarin... Oh, actually, before that, we end up going to the refugee Mandalorians that were still on Mandalore, the survivors, and they actually had made gardens on the planet to be able to survive and eat food and things like that. So that was really cool to see. Then we actually get into the actual battle with the Mandalorians, and we see them using their jetpacks, and they're all fighting in the air. We get this really cool fight. Then we jump over to Moff Gideon, and he actually explains what the clones were for. He was trying to get a body where... I'm not sure if it was for himself or not, if he was going to move his consciousness or whatever, but he wanted to be able to use the Force. So the clone bodies were to be able to use the Force. If you remember, in the first season, they stole Grogu. They had Grogu, so maybe they got some of the cloning abilities to the Force with that. And then Moff Gideon then makes his own clone bodies, and he's mixing it with everything to make him stronger. So then we get Moff Gideon versus Din Djarin. Din Djarin is winning that fight, but then those red praetors, the soldiers, end up showing up and they start attacking Din Djarin. But then Grogu comes in and he's like trying to like save him by having them go fight him. You can see that Din Djarin's like, no, I gotta go save Grogu, but he still has to fight Moff Gideon. But luckily Bo-Katan comes in and she tags in, so Din Djarin can go save Grogu. So that's a really cool moment. And then we see the fight between Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon. It's really cool to see. But then while Grogu is... sorry, my bad. Grogu is being attacked by the Praetors. Grogu's losing. Din Djarin comes in and he saves Grogu. And it's a really cool moment for them. And they actually beat these Praetors. But then we go back to Bo-Katan and Moff Gideon. And this asshole destroys the Darksaber. Basically, like, your power is gone. And like he crushes it like in her hand. It's insane. But at that little after that, the cruiser is gonna crash into that middle spot and he's gonna kill everything there. And we see that Moff Gideon's trying to escape, but Din Djarin won't let it. Bo-Katan won't let it. They're shooting at him. They're trying to keep him in the same spot. The ship crashes in, and then they all get together. And we have this cool scene where we see Moff Gideon burning in fire. I hope he actually died. But Grogu actually saves his team by using the Force to like make sure that the fire didn't kill them. And that was a really cool scene. And they win the battle. We then go to the Mandalorians on the near the Living Waters. And we see Paz Villa's son. He gets like baptized in the waters, I guess would be the way to say it. And then after that, we see that Mando actually adopts Grogu. And so his name's now is Din Grogu. And I was just like, oh, it's really cool. Now they're actually our father and son. So that was a cool thing. So Grogu's now adopted. And we actually see now the Great Forge is brought back. So that's really cool. The Mandalorians got what they wanted. And from there we go on to Mando and Grogu starting to do missions for like the New Republic. They're like, hey, like if you guys need someone to help with stuff in the Outer Rim, we're your people to help you out. And there's this really cool scene where you see Grogu's like sees an IG head, and they're like, oh, what's going on? He's like, well, you can pay me by giving me that head right there. And they use this head to bring back IG-11. So for all the crap I gave episode 1 for later episode 2, I said crap about episode 1 because they did that IG-11 thing and then they kind of gave up with it. They did bring him back at the end, so I did give him crap, but they did finish it off. So that's cool. And then at the end, we see IG-11 now back, being all happy with everybody. And then at the end, we actually see them just like at their own house, just still on Navarro. And they're just like father and son. Grogu's playing outside with some frogs while Mando's just chilling, sitting down. And that's the end of the season. So I really enjoyed what they did in this episode. I just felt the journey didn't really... we got the reward, but I didn't think the journey was really... didn't get me there. Like... it's kind of like you watch a really good wrestling fight match, and then... but the build to get there was like just wasn't worth it. That's kind of what this is. It's like it was cool what we saw at the end, but I wish they could have set it up a lot better. So that was my real complaint with this. But I actually thought the episode, like I said, I gave it an 8 out of 10. It was great. But yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on this episode. I'm gonna do a season review for next week. Also, watch out for Picard. I need to get episode 9 out today, hopefully, or yeah, today. And then episode 10, the finale, series finale. I'll try to get that out maybe tomorrow or the day after. So yeah, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.